What's up, my future film aficionados? Resident Cinephile Justin here to usher you through the final frontier in cinema history.
Space.
Nope, not that one, and bingo. That's right, Flix-notes presents the much-loved and often slept-through 2001: A Space Odyssey. But how did this symphony-filled space classic come to be? See, all the way back in 1964, the man, the myth, the legend, Stanley Kubrick, fresh off his success with the dark comedy Dr. Strangelove, was looking to do something a little different. Lucky for Kubrick, he knew just the guy, a science fiction author and friend by the name of Arthur C. Clarke. And as you might have guessed, their meeting went a little something like this.
You son of a bitch! I'm in!
So off these two legends win in crafting the screenplay/novel of one of the most important films of all time. Flash forward 4 million rewrites, and 4 years later to 1968, it was finally here, Kubrick's magnum opus Space Oddity, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Without further ado, let's unplug our Alexa, take a deep breath, and dive right into what this film's all about. We open to this, a booming homage and difficult to pronounce orchestral nod to this famous philosophical sad boy, Friedrich Nietzsche. Flashback to the dawn of man, and it's lunchtime for these poorly costumed primates. Now, if you've ever wondered what life was like as a humble monkey, well, it sucked. In fact, our predecessors spent most of their time starving or fighting over this dirty waterhole. But that's all about to change when this barrel of monkeys, fortunately, stumbles on this big black space rock and fondles it a bit. Just like that, they're imbued with a vast knowledge of tools that has them looking less like this, and more like this.
Is there a project you're working on?
I know more than you.
With full bellies and big bones, it's time to head back to that waterhole and beat some ass. And the rest is history. Bloody, stupid history. Match cut and fast forward a few million years, and we're finally in space. That's right, the future is now, old man, and toilets are complicated, but this is where we first meet Dr. Floyd, enjoying a nap on the spaceship equivalent of Flying American. After landing at this spectacularly furnished retro-futurist space station, we get a peek at an awkward Zoom call between Dr. Floyd and his clearly neglected kid.
Are you coming to my party tomorrow?
I'm sorry, sweetheart, but I can't.
This all begs the question, what's this absent father doing in space anyway? That just so happens to be exactly what these nosy randos want to know too. See, it's been radio silent on the moon for 10 days now, and Dr. Floyd knows why. Rumor has it it's an epidemic, but nothing's been confirmed. Skipping past 5 minutes of space stations and classical music, we get a ship landing on the moon that looks so damn good it convinced this Chad the moon landing was fake, and he's not afraid to write about it in the comments. Dr. Floyd finally joined several top scientists to discuss what the hell's actually going on. It turns out the epidemic business was a bunch of malarkey. And in all actuality, another ancient big black space monolith was recently discovered on the moon. What follows is one of the most atmospheric photo ops of the rock in cinema history, complete with even more man-on-rock fondling. But, let's not make it weird. Suddenly a super irritating radio signal from Jupiter rings out, deafening the men and completely ruining their pose for the gram. Hard cut to Jupiter's orbit a whole 18 months later, and we get a gravity-defying shot so cool, Christopher Nolan copied it. Twice. Meet the Voyagers of the Starship Discovery 1 in their journey to play video games and run around in their underwear while being recorded by this invasive webcam.
Write that down! Write that down!
So, who are these guys? Thanks to this exposition-filled talk show, we learn their names are David Bowman, Frank Poole, and this creepy talking stoplight named HAL 9000. The rest of the 5-person crew are all still fast asleep in hibernation. Spoiler alert, you don't need to know their names. It turns out that chillingly human-like HAL is a bit of a diva, and the supercomputer has no qualms boasting about its flawless track record and incapability of error. Basically this.
No 9000 computer has ever made a mistake or distorted information.
It's not long before HAL detects a malfunction in the AE-35 satellite unit. So off Dave goes to try and fix it, and what follows is an excruciatingly long 15 minutes of this. Plot twist, the AE-35 is just fine, which means HAL 9000 done f***ed up. One uncomfortable conversation later, the writing's on the wall. Something's very wrong with HAL.
Are you certain there's never been any case of even the most insignificant computer error?
None whatsoever, Frank. Quite honestly, I wouldn't worry myself about that.
So Dave and Frank do what any genius movie scientist would do, sneak off to their space pod and plot to kill the crazy-ass computer that controls every single thing on the ship. Unfortunately, these two unwitting astronauts skip the lip-reading portion of HAL 9000's user manual because he sees every single word. And, well, cut to this. And just in case you didn't get enough aggressive mouth breathing earlier, we get 10 more minutes of it here, while Dave tries to go grab Frank in the spacepod equivalent of this. Once Dave makes it back to the Discovery, much like any typical teen computer, HAL doesn't feel like opening the door. As you can imagine, Dave's pretty pissed off at this point, and he uses the power of rage to break his way back in. Cut to the second time HAL realizes he done f***ed up today. But Dave's had just about enough of this monotone Terminator, so he says goodbye and very slowly unplugs HAL. It kinda makes you feel a little sad for this singing murder machine. Suddenly, a message appears from none other than the OG absent father himself, Dr. Floyd. Dave finds the space version of the tunnel from Willy Wonka, and off he goes to the edge of the universe.
Yes!
The danger must be growing, for the rowers keep on rowing.
Turns out Carl Sagan was wrong, and the edge of the universe actually looks like a Victorian Better Homes and Gardens cover. After arriving at the edge of time and space, Dave starts to look a little dusty. Despite going from this handsome fella to this ancient boomer in a matter of seconds, he decides, screw it, it's lunchtime. But his last meal's cut a bit short, so he does what any old man would do. He drags his wrinkly ass to bed for a midday nap. Dave looks out from the bed, and sure enough, the big black monolith appears again, and something weird happens. Dave transcends into a fetus, and not just any fetus, a giant space fetus. Now cue the music, baby, because this star child's going for a trip back to where it all began. Bum-ba-da-bum, and credits. Wait, what? Yeah, that's it. It turns out when your film's all about the experience, the writing of the structure can take a bit of a backseat. After all, would you really want to lose even a minute of this? Well, maybe. But in all seriousness, 2001's mystery is part of its myth. And answers or not, the film is rife with potential for analysis. Take for instance the film's commentary on mankind and our overwhelming tendency to wake up and choose violence. It's no coincidence the first thing our predecessors do when they discover tools is this. Kubrick was known for his sharp comedic commentary on the human propensity for war, especially in his previous films like the aforementioned Dr. Strangelove. While the message is broader here, the idea that technology progressed for the sole purpose of murdering each other is a poignant yet low-key funny point to make at the dawn of man. Building off that, it only seems fitting that the tools that evolved to help us kill each other would one day become smart enough to do this. This leads directly to the next point. The film's entire second act is essentially a cautionary tale of too much dependence on technology. Gee, where have we heard that one before? In 2001's somewhat fictional future, tech has firmly placed itself at the center of our own experience, whether it's waiting on us hand and foot or connecting bad fathers to their neglected kids. The idea that our dependence on technology has become not just invasive, but dangerous is made all the more pronounced by the introduction of our not-so-infallible Hal. While these aren't the only topics the film brushes on, it's a good start, and should save you from looking like this at the end of the video. So that's it then. 2001 is a big, bloated masterpiece by one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. So go ahead, plug your Alexa back in, and thanks for watching. Oh, and like and subscribe for more Flix-notes.